What if I told you that 73% of businesses that implement AI see zero return on investments in the first year? Not because AI doesn't work, it's because they choose the wrong tools because they build their AI strategy on quicksand. And that's what I want you to learn in this episode. Here's the question that should keep every business owner awake at night. Are you about to waste thousands of dollars on AI that will never work? Because that is exactly what's happening to businesses everywhere. They're rushing to implement chatbots, predictive analytics, and automation tools, convinced that they are, future-proofing their companies. Instead, they are setting themselves up for spectacular, expensive failures. There's recent reports that show that companies that they're spending 15,000 or more on AI solutions that deliver worse results than their previous manual processes. There are documented cases of e-commerce AI chatbots that frustrated customers so badly that they actually drove sales away instead of making things better. Professional services firms have implemented predictive models that made such poor recommendations that they lost major clients. So every single failure came down to the same root cause, a problem that is completely preventable, completely fixable, but almost it's universally ignored. And the problem isn't actually AI. The problem is the foundation. Today, I am going to share the uncomfortable truth about why most AI implementations fail, reveal the hidden foundation that successful AI companies build first, and give you a simple framework to assess whether your business is ready for AI or whether you're about to flush down money down the drain because you're not ready for AI implementation in your business. So by the end of this episode, you will know exactly why data is either your biggest asset in your business or potentially your biggest liability in the age of AI. So let me share a story that will illustrate this perfectly. There's a case study about a museum in Switzerland that wanted to implement AI for making a catalog and visitor experience enhancement. That was kind of like the main thing that they wanted to create. So they had allocated a significant budget and they were ready to move fast. We have, they said that they had decades of data. They said that confidently they've been sitting in this gold mine of data that they can totally start working with. But when they examine their actual data situation, they discover something that it was unexpected. You might think, that a museum primary data will be about information from their permanent collection, all the historical artifacts that they own and display. And yes, this museum had extensive records about those pieces, right? But also the museum in this case also hosts temporary exhibitions where they borrow pieces from other institutions. For these exhibitors or exhibitions that has been in the past, their most critical data wasn't the physical artifacts at all. It was the maybe photographs and documentation of these borrowed pieces, right? So think about this. They don't own these items, so they can't control, the physical objects. The artifacts returned to their home institutions after the exhibition ended, right? That wasn't part of the museum. But what happened was the museum absolutely needs to preserve any information and any detail that they have about any exhibition. So the high resolution photograph, the description, the historical context, the exhibition history, and even the visitor engagement data, right? All that is data that the museum needed to save in their records. If that digital data gets lost or corrupted, they lose irreplaceable institutional knowledge and the ability to create future exhibitions. So knowing this really completely shifted their AI strategy for physical inventory management to digital asset preservation. So they looked into visitor behavioral analysis and predictive models for exhibition success. That was kind of like their thinking. So the key insight here with these stories, by understanding their data priorities first, they could design the AI systems that would truly enhance their operations rather than just digitalizing existing processes. So it's not just like kind of like doing what you keep doing manually. Sometimes you need to think differently how you're implementing or how you're running your business and your operations to see if it makes sense. It makes sense when you're trying to bring AI into your business. And this is happening to businesses everywhere. Companies that take time to understand their data foundations before implementing AI see dramatically better results than those that just go and jump straight to the tools, because that's what's been the biggest mistake that I've seen so far. Let me give you another example that comes from an e-commerce company. They wanted to AI power customer service. That was kind of like their goal, right? So initially they assumed their most important data was product descriptions and pricing. So they planned to build their AI chatbot around that information. But when they actually analyzed customer inquiries, they discovered that most questions were about shipping, returns, and product compatibility, right? So information that was really scattered across multiple systems that the company had. So by reorganizing and structuring these data first, their AI chatbot became incredibly effective at really handling the questions the customers had, like rather than just thinking that the questions, that there will be other questions. Like, so you kind of need to review what data you have from your customers and not just think, oh, this is what I would put in the chatbot. And that brings me to a fundamental truth about AI success. So AI really amplifies the intelligence that already exists in your data. So when your data is well organized and aligned with your business goals, AI becomes transformational. It's amazing. So let me give you 10 specific ways a solid data foundation multiplies the value of any AI investment. And that's why it's so important. So first, it enables true hyper personalization, and that is super important nowadays with in this market, how things are changing with AI. When your customer data is clean and integrated, AI can create experiences that will reflect actual individual behavioral patterns, not just demographic assumptions. Second, it'll dramatically accelerate decision making. Clean, accessible data means your AI systems can provide insights you can actually trust and act on immediately. Third, it'll create unified visibility across your entire organization. This means your AI tools can draw insights from your complete business picture, not just isolated data silos. Fourth, it'll enable continuous improvement through feedback loops, because your AI systems will get smarter over time because they are learning from accurate, relevant information about what actually works in your business. The other benefits include significantly operational efficiencies gains. And I say that because advanced predictive capabilities that can actually prove useful, scalability that supports growth without breaking, and the creation of proprietary data assets that become genuine competitive advantages. This is very important. But here's what really matters for your business. Quality data has become the new currency of competitive advantage. Companies that organize their data, thoughtfully see that AI implementations will deliver a real return on investment. While those that kind of skip the step of really like what data they have set up in their business will struggle to see meaningful results from this AI investment. So the long story short, you really need to look at what kind of data you have, how clean and organized the data is, and what's the strategy behind what you're trying to accomplish with the data you have for your business, leveraging AI, right? So let me now share some examples that show you the difference between AI implementation that struggles versus those that thrive with good with good AI with good data, and it all comes down to the data foundation. So let me give you this one of these examples. So there are, let's say, two e-commerce companies, both mid-size, both wanting to implement AI customer service, right? Company A jumped straight into AI chatbot implementation. They spent significantly money on a sophisticated platform. They fed in all their existing documentation and launched quickly. Now we have company B, where it took a totally different approach. Before selecting any AI tool, they spend time analyzing their customer service data. They discover their existing documentation had inconsistencies, some return policies were outdated, product information was scattered across different systems, and even customer questions often require information that wasn't really easily accessible. So company B, who really spend the time looking at the data that they have in their systems, spend a few weeks organizing all this information first. They create a single source of truth for policies, structured the product data, and that all that data was consistently all put together, and also mapped out the most common customer inquiry patterns that were coming over and over again to their business. So what do you think the results was? For company A, who, as I mentioned earlier, like went rush into implementing a chatbot without not looking at what data they had, their customers were frustrated and created more support tickets than the chatbot helping them with saving time, right? Where company B, that chatbot handled 60% of inquiries successfully and actually improved customer satisfaction scores because it was really detailed how they have the data source working correctly with the chatbot. So again, it is the same AI technology, but it has really different outcomes. And that is because the difference comes from the data foundation. That's the big learning here. Let me give you another example from the consulting world. We have two professional service firms, and both wanted to use AI for sales prediction. So the first firm had 5 years of sales data, and it built a predictive model immediately, right? So the model looked at sophisticated and produced confident predictions about how the prospect would close. The second consulting firm, had years of sales data, but they noticed something. Their sales team had been inconsistent about how they logged prospect information. Some recorded initial interest, others kind of log serious inquiry. So the definitions kept changing as the company grew. So again, the data wasn't well structured. It wasn't very well organized for understanding and for creating really clear predictions. So before really building their predictive models, they needed to standardize their data collection process and clean up their historical data to ensure consistency, right? So the first firm, the predictions were really essentially random because they just sometimes the data was right or wrong depending on what data they used. So it had no reliable patterns. Where the second firm, the model was more genuine, useful because how they really look at how the data was set up and then really analyze it before we started using it. Let me give you another example now from a digital marketing agency that wanted to leverage AI to optimize campaign performance across multiple channels. They had data from social media, Google Ads, email platforms, their CRM, and website analytics. So rather than immediately implementing AI, any AI solution, they first tackle a common problem, which is their data attribution was inconsistent. They had data from Facebook, Google, and their CRMs were all measuring conversions differently, making it impossible to understand which channel actually really drove results. And if you are familiar how the attribution works, if you don't have clean data, then it'll give you really confusing outputs. So they invested time in creating unified tracking and consistent attribution models across all platforms. Only then they implemented AI for a campaign optimization. And the result was that they were very confidently reallocating the budget to high performing channels, and that helped them to improve return on investment for their clients because they were really having the right data clean and organized in the right proper way in order to really implement AI to be successful. So these examples really illustrate that the difference between AI success and failure isn't about sometimes the sophistication of the AI tools, it's about the quality of the data foundation. So the learning here is when businesses skip that data preparation phase, they often experience inconsistent AI outputs that don't reflect the real business patterns. They also face difficulty trusting AI recommendations because the underlying data seems unreliable. The AI tools that seem to work in demos, that's great, but they struggle in real world applications. Frustrations with AI investments that don't deliver expected returns, and that's seen a lot. If you're not ready, if you don't have understanding how or what's the best way to implement things. And also there's missed opportunities because AI isn't drawing insights from complete, accurate information. But when businesses really spend the time and invest in clean, well-organized data, they will see a different picture. They will see AI tools that will provide genuinely useful insights that they can really work and act on. They will see consistent, reliable outputs that will be confidence in the AI-assisted decision-making, because at the end of the day, that's what we are trying to accomplish with AI. Rapid improvement in AI performance as the systems, they learn from quality data. And then clean return on investment that justifies really the investment and the investment at the time and the AI expansion. And they also see competitive advantages that will compound over time because they have a clean system and a clean strategy, right? So the pattern is clear. AI will amplify whatever foundation you have, you give them. So a strong data foundation will create a powerful AI capabilities, But if you have a weak foundation, that will limit with any AI tool that you use, no matter how advanced the technology is, because you have to have a good data foundation in order to make this work the right way. So now we have established the problem, which is businesses are failing with AI because they're building on weak data foundations. We've seen the stories for what goes wrong and what goes right with the stories that I told you already. So I hope that it's clear so far so you understand how important it is the data that you're using for in your business, and if you're what kind of data you're capturing, how you're capturing, and everything. Now, here's what I want you to offer to you. There's a practical framework to assess your own data readiness before you invest into another tool, invest dollars and time in anything about AI. So this is the exact three-step process that I use with my consulting clients. And I'm gonna give this to you so you can kind of like think differently and start like approaching your business differently in a good way. And this is for free, so I wanted to make sure that you get this information, and by the end of this segment, you will be able to evaluate your own business and know exactly where you stand within your data. So step number one will be, first, we need to define your data objectives. Most businesses skip this entirely, and that is why they fail. You cannot assess whether your data is good or bad until you're crystal clear on what you need to accomplish with it, right? So start by asking, what specific business outcomes should my data enable? Not generic goals like, oh, let's say better customer service or increase sales. You gotta get so specific. Do you want to reduce customer support response times, let's say from 24 hours to 2 hours? Do you want to predict which customers are likely to churn maybe with 90% accuracy? Do you want to automate, let's say, 50% of your lead qualification process? Then identify your strategic priorities. Is your focus revenue growth, cost reduction, risk management, or competitive differentiation? Each of these requires different data strategies. That's why you really need to understand where you're going with this. What goals are you trying to accomplish? Next, you want to catalog your known challenges. Where are you currently flying behind? And actually, where do you think that you're blind with the data that you have? What decisions do you make, based on maybe gut feelings that you prefer to make with data? Because a lot of people make decisions on gut feelings, and data don't lie. If you have good data, they won't lie. So think about that. Think about what processes are completely manual that could be automated in your business. And finally, identify specific use cases for quick wins, because that's gonna make you feel better understanding, like in small chunks, the things that you can do with your business, with your data, with your systems, and implementing AI. What workflows or processes could create immediate value if it's enhanced with better data? I always tell, my clients to start here. Find something you can improve in the next 36 or 30 to 90 days, let's say. That can have really a measurable impact. Here's a practical example. For example, I can tell you many professional services, these firms, they say that they want better client management, when they are exploring AI solutions. But when you dig deeper into the actual business challenge, you often discover that the real pain point is something much more specific, like the time between the initial inquiry and the proposal delivery, right? So it's very specific, and that's why you need to really analyze what you're trying to do from a goal standpoint. In cases where this process, in this case, will average into 10 to 12 days, Firms are losing deals simply because of the slow response times. That specifically really completely will change how you would approach the data strategy and the AI implementation if you know that that specific process it's what it needs to be implemented. The step two is to assess your current state. And this is where you audit what you actually have versus what you need. And I break this into four parts. One is inventory your data sources and systems. So list everything, what CRMs you have, spreadsheets, email platforms, accounting softwares, website analytics, social media data, everything. Then map out who owns each system, who inputs data, and how information flows between the systems, because that's where you will see the discrepancies sometimes. Part two, profile your data quality. Take samples of from different systems and evaluate it. So is it accurate? Is it complete? Consistent? Is the data timely? Is it relevant? So getting samples of the data sets, it'll help you understand what kind of data you're getting from each system. You don't need to audit everything. That will take forever. Just pull representative samples and look for patterns, and that will help you understand your situation. Filter, like, let's say, spreadsheet for blank cells, check for duplicate records, look for inconsistent formatting, like dates in different formats or customer names entered differently. Those are things that you need to kind of understand the quality data that you have. Number three, the part three will be assess AI readiness specifically. And that means, is your data structured or unstructured? Structured. So if your data is structured, that means it'll fit neatly into databases. Let's say customer names, purchase amounts, dates, unstructured data includes like email content, social media posts, or customer service notes. So there's structured data and unstructured data. You need to identify both data sets. There's different AI applications that work better with a different type of data sets. So that's why you need to identify that. Also look at, does your data need labeling or preparation in order to kind of understand how you will use it? If you have customer service tickets, are they categorized by an issue type? So the more you get the data clean and categorized, easier to use and implement in the different systems. Let's say if you have sales records, are wins and losses clearly defined with reasons why you got these sales, and what are the reasons how you won this let's say account or whatever you're selling. Do you have sufficient volume? Some AI applications need large data sets to work effectively, so that's the other thing. If you have segmented customers by region, let's say, but only you have 5 customers in most regions, that might not provide meaningful insights because your data sample by region is very low, right? So that's another thing that if you haven't looked at your data, how you have it organized, then you'll find those roadblocks. And the fourth part is evaluate your team's capabilities. Do the people working with your data have the skills they need? What are their biggest frustrations with the current processes? Are there cultural barriers to adapting new tools or processes? So during this assessment, you will almost always discover quick wins, simple fixes that can improve efficiencies immediately. And it is really extremely common to find systems that should be connected by RN or data that is being entered twice in different places. So that's why when you start looking at your systems, the type of data that you have, you ended up finding so many things that you haven't even thought. And that's why this process is super important. And then the third step will be to build your implementation roadmap. And this is where you create an actionable plan to get from where you are today to where you want to be. So in this plan, first you want to prioritize how you use, your data. You want to kind of like organize the data, how easy it is to implement versus how much business impact will this data create in your business. So focus on high impact versus low effort wins first. That will be kind of like the first step. The second step will be to define your success metrics. What specific measurable outcomes will tell you if your AI initiatives are working? Make sure you can actually track these metrics with your current or planned data collection, because that's going to help you understand a little bit more how you're doing. And the third one is to start evaluating the AI tools. And that's when you start. Like first you need to do all this work on the data. And then the third step is when you like, okay, now let's look at what AI tools I can use based on the type of data that I have, right? So this is backwards from for how most businesses do it, but it's so critical. So choose the tools that will fit your specific workflows and data reality, not the tools that require you to completely change how you operate your business. And finally, establish governance structures, like who owns that data, how will it be stored and secure, who's responsible for keeping it clean and updated, what are the approval processes for making changes. These processes, sometimes people don't even, or businesses don't even have it. So this is something that you might need to start implementing now, in your business. So this roadmap will serve double duty. It'll prepare you for AI success while it'll make your business operation entirely more efficient and more scalable. So before even you start thinking about what AI tools you will use, this is kind of really optimize the way you do your business, the way you operate in your business, because you need to start thinking differently on the data that you have.